What about Road Warrior Animal, Bagwell, Luger? Obviously Bagwell
did come in.
He winds up getting a look, but originally the reports were you guys weren't necessarily sold on him. Is that based on the perceived heat, or he didn't think you guys would want him? Of course, most recently we had seen Bagwell and Luger sort of packaged together for WCW. Did anybody think that maybe, hey, this guy, he's got to be a shit disturber, or what was the rap on Bagwell?
A lot of times Bagwell had a bad rap, first of all. And Vince has always been one of those people. He doesn't care what the rap is on somebody that he hasn't dealt with before.
Right.
Okay. Shane Douglas was someone he had dealt with before. So take him out of that equation when I say this. But if there's someone, Randy Savage had the worst reputation in the wrestling business, and Vince took a chance on him. And it was like how Randy dealt with Vince. So Bagwell was somebody that I don't care what his reputation is. I don't care what his rap is. It may have been a bad reputation based on the atmosphere that he was in there. And it's going to be a different atmosphere here. So Vince has always been willing to take guys. And yeah, Bagwell had a horrible reputation, but we took a chance on him and, brought him in. As far as Animal, the attraction was the Road Warriors, and it was the tag team. And I don't think that Vince saw a whole lot of value in using Joe as a single. So there was no interest. Plus, again, I don't think that Animal expressed any desire to come in. So again, it works both ways. A lot of these guys, they were happy either getting the hell out and being able to go out and do their indies and do their other stuff, or they had contracts that were still paying out when they chose to continue to get the payout on their contract and not work.
That goes for Luger, Vicious, Bigelow, all those guys.
Those guys had contracts that were getting paid out. Yeah. Okay. And there was not really any interest in Bigelow. Wasn't a whole lot of interest in Sid at that time.
Why
I think that he felt there was a lot of rehash there.
Okay. I understand.
It sucked. It was not good. Felt horrible for the performers. I felt horrible for everybody. It was the first time Arn Anderson had ever done color commentary. We all understood immediately why he's never done color commentary.
I'm so glad you brought that up because, and this is going to feel like I'm going to bat for my boy here, and you know what I'm going to hit you with. Why did Kevin Dunn not have any interest in Tony Schiavone? I mean, if you're going to talk about a WCW invasion and you really want it to feel like a WCW show, Schiavone should have been a big part of that, in my opinion. I mean, he is the voice of WCW and had been for seemingly decades, and now he's out. And the dirt sheets would say that this is Kevin Dunn has the final call, and it looked like it was going to be Mike Tenay and Scott Hudson. Of course, as you said, we get Arn Anderson in the mix too. What is it about Schiavone that Kevin Dunn or whoever made the decision didn't dig?
It wasn't Kevin Dunn's decision. It was Vince McMahon's decision. I don't know that Tony Schiavone was even available at the time. I don't know what Tony's contract was. The people that we were given were Tenay, Scott Hudson, and Scott Hudson was a last minute replacement. So I don't believe that Tony was even available, but I don't know that. I think that a lot of that, it wasn't Kevin Dunn. It was more Jim Ross and Vince McMahon at that time doing a lot of that stuff.
There we go. That's what I didn't know that, but now that you've mentioned JR, that certainly feels like where we would have been, because at different times, those guys didn't always get along so great, right?
I don't know, man. I think that there was sometimes professional jealousy, yes. But at the same time, look, JR put aside a lot of personal feelings, and I never experienced anything with JR where he held anything personally against somebody for a job or bringing them in if they were the right person for the job. So I don't think he would have done that with Tony. I just don't think that Tony was available during that time.
What about Shane Douglas? Here's a guy who had a rocky past. He had not left on the best of terms. Usually whenever he leaves a company, he bashes them on the way out, including the WWF. He's 36 and a strong interview, but a lot of people consider him injury prone at this point in his career. Do you remember any discussions about Shane Douglas in 2001?
I remember just thinking that, and this was internal talk in the creative team, there wasn't any interest in Shane. And a lot of it did have to do with some of the comments that had been made before. And the funny thing about that is we find out in history, no matter how bad your comments are about the company, you'll be brought back in and the red carpet will be rolled out for you. But there's just
fairness, that some of that is the office was making the decision of, well, he bashed us, so fuck him. And when I say office, I mean everyone around Vince. Vince is the one who can normally say, turn the other cheek, pal. What's best for business? Bring him back. Right.
Yeah. But there was no interest in Shane at that point.
But why is my question? Do you think that Shane wasn't interesting? Wasn't a good performer? Wasn't a good promo? Or is it just, man, this guy's difficult to do business with. Fuck him.
I don't know that Shane expressed any desire to come in.
Well,
and I don't know what's that?
Of course he wanted to come in.
Did he tell you that? I don't think he did.
Well, what would he prefer to do? Make shots in fucking Philadelphia area indies? No.
Some guys do. Some guys do prefer that. But again, it wasn't, out of the guys that were available to come in, we got most of those guys that were available to come in. I don't know where Shane landed on that list. I remember a very brief discussion as to whether or not Shane Douglas was somebody that we wanted to go after, and nobody seemed to have anything for him. So we moved on.
All right. Well, let's get started, man. It is an interesting time in the wrestling business because people have sort of talked about these dream matches. What would happen if this guy took on that guy? And a lot of times, those are matches that people still talk about today. I mean, one of those dream matches that people put together all those years ago, or what if Sting was to wrestle The Undertaker? When you guys first start talking about an invasion angle, are there dream matches that you'd like to put together? What do you remember some of the potential matches looking like when you first discuss it before, you really have the invasion pay-per-view nailed down?
Well, I think again, without all the particulars, the first match that comes to mind was Austin Goldberg, and to have that matchup at some point, be able to build to it. Same thing with Undertaker and Sting. There was thinking of, okay, do you do Hall and Nash, and do you bring those guys back and put them into the fold? There were a lot of what ifs, but it all becomes mental masturbation at that point, because with the exception of JR, I don't know that there was anyone that had really dealt with Goldberg, and Goldberg showed zero desire, nil, zilch, to come in. He had his deal and it was going to be paid out. He didn't want to come in. So the fact that he didn't want to come in, we sure as hell weren't going to go after him. We didn't want anybody that didn't want to be here.
It would be reported by Keller here that the plans to build WCW into a separate touring group were obviously scrapped, and a WCW program on Monday night. So Raw essentially being a WCW show, that's obviously postponed or completely abandoned. And the injection of ECW is a last ditch, desperate effort just to salvage this. Quote, yet WWF's highest expectations for the angle at this point are much more humble than just a few weeks ago. They're hoping at this point that the invasion angle at least has a 1 month nice run. Anything more would just be a bonus. So is that sort of the way you remember the shift being? We go from, in the course of just a couple of weeks, we're going to have a touring brand. It's going to be WCW Monday Night Raw. And now, fuck it. Let's get to the pay-per-view.
Yes. And from a creative standpoint, it was just, can we be done with it and move on?
Obviously, when you have a change like that, you're not just changing the creative. You're also going to have to change some contracts, because if you're not really doing 2 touring brands, and I mean, I think everybody agrees that was the right call. Probably got too many guys on your roster, right? Because you brought over 24 guys. Again, they've got 90-day outs, but still, you bring them over, and now, well, shit, right?
Yeah, a little bit of restructure in there.
Oh, that sucks.